Hello and welcome to Understanding Narcissists. Thank you so much for joining me. In this episode, we are going to talk about an aspect of a narcissist's denial and sort of their analytical apparatus, their mode of operating and thinking, and how it affects their perception of the world, and how that perception sort of gets to you and confuses you and muddles your vision and fogs your sight and all that, to how they're able to get these ideas in your mind, these often very perverse ideas in a subtle way that you don't realize are perverse at the time. How you subtly accept them, believe that they're your own, believe that they're reasonable, and how it really tilts your entire view of the world and puts you in a position to be more vulnerable to them, drawn to them, dependent on them. That introduction is not particularly new at all, but I hope that this video will shed some light on what goes on in their mind, which I'm always careful to cover in a very specific way because I don't want to put words in their mouths. This is stuff they'll never say. And I also want to describe how they're thinking or feeling when I am not them and I don't know how they're thinking or feeling. So I have to ascertain, given their actions, what's actually motivating them. Because, let's be honest, I've described them as insane or a type of insane before. But that does not mean that they are entirely irrational. They seem to act very rational within their own domain and within their own goals. They're quite effective at that. It's very ordered. It's very deliberate and purposeful, their actions. There's a whole strategy, a whole plan, long-term at work. That is not the mark of a crazy person. That is not, it's crazy in itself, but it is not indicative of somebody who is scatterbrained and doesn't know what's going on. That shows an acute level of awareness. And yet, the very part of them that they can't deal with, the truth, the things that I'm trying to describe and share with you in these videos, is the very part of them that would completely demolish their efforts, that would reveal what's really going on and invalidate everything that they do out of concern for you. So I've talked about sort of the retro editing that they do. They control the past. They recognize that without a factual basis for documenting the past, what's happened in certain events, specifically disputes between you two, issues, conflicts, they effectively rewrite it. They can change it. It's just a story. It's just a memory. They can bend and mold their own mind, their own recall in a way that will benefit them time and time again. That's something that obviously naturally takes time because the memories have to be there in the first place in order for that to happen. But stick around long enough, and it will happen. It's a necessity. And so you start to recognize that not only maybe it's deliberate, maybe it's purposeful, maybe they're aware of it, but oftentimes they're not. It's just a convenience. And they'll start believing things and acting on things for the sake of a belief. Because that's all that matters, is what people believe. And they believe a certain thing about themselves that isn't true. And they're willing to do anything, and that includes lying to themselves. They've been doing it anyway. That's a natural behavior of theirs, natural to narcissists, and necessary. They're going to have it. That's how everything kind of keeps rolling along. You can't actively engage or participate in trying to figure out what's going on. You have to obscure it. You have to muddy the truth. You have to keep it hidden from other people and isolate those people, keep them from cooperating in a way that would undermine the whole thing, the whole effort. And so one of the things you'll see, a necessity, for instance, in abusing you, is that there's always a line that they don't cross. There's always some arbitrary mark that they move around right and left that has to do with, basically, on one side, they're good, and they're on that side because that's the good side, because they don't do this thing, which is what sort of defines the line, this criteria, that puts you on the bad side. And they control that line naturally. They determine who's on it, where they are on it, and they get to move it around at will. And I also want to say, without stepping out of the topic of this channel, is that all abusers, real chronic abusers, even, people who abuse themselves, when they're continuing along that path, this especially applies, though, when they're abusing other people. There's always a line. There's always a thing they tell themselves that they don't do that somehow makes it different or better than other abusers, and thereby sort of relieves them of that responsibility, that it's not their fault. There's always something in place that of their design, whether they're aware of it or not, that kind of a mechanism that kicks in and says, no, you're okay, you can keep doing this. The thing that enables the behavior. And sometimes it's other people. But say in Narcissists, they always have people telling them that they're not abusive and that they're good and they're propping up the illusion. Well, the problem is that who attracts and fosters and conditions those people? The narcissist does. So it is an inherent mechanism where things are built in so that they are never doing anything wrong. Especially, this is the real power of denial, especially when they are doing something wrong. Really, really wrong. It's always there. And so with chronic abusers, people who are in just cycles of abuse, like as I say, to themselves or to others, and causing repeated trauma, this adaptation that they've been forced to assume, built in, will be something that allows it to continue. And one of the things is when they have to acknowledge it, when it hits them in the face, which it does, there has to be something that says, no, you're not bad, you're not doing anything wrong, this is the way to go. And they're going to gravitate towards that behavior due to trauma. Narcissists do it in a way that basically says, no, I'm not doing anything wrong, I don't feel this way, I don't harbor any ill will towards anybody else, I'm just doing this out of concern, I'm going to continue to do it at all costs. Whether they're lying through their teeth or they actually believe that is a mystery that I have not yet solved. Maybe you can help me with it. But regardless, that is what they're doing. That's the purpose of the illusion, to say, no, nothing wrong is going on here. You're a wonderful person. You should continue right on doing what you're doing. And that's probably one of the breaking points, I think, for people who, enablers who are trapped with narcissists, where things start to sort of unravel because they start to notice a pattern. And there's a pattern of behavior, a pattern of destruction that the narcissist just readily engages in on a regular basis with some frequency. And so over the years, all those events pile up and you start to realize this is just going to keep happening until we're dead. And that's because the narcissist doesn't acknowledge it. You start to recognize that the narcissist doesn't exist. And not only it doesn't exist, they combat it. They actively resist it. It can't be something. They won't even acknowledge it. They won't even float the idea. They won't humor you. They have to shoot it down. They'll attribute it to you and say that it's all up to you and you're doing this and that and the other thing, and it has nothing to do with them. But in the world of narcissists, that just means that they're guilty as charged. When they the things they most resist, the things they're most offended by, or most, I should say, reactive to, those are the things that are the most real. Those are the things that are the most real in their minds, and that's affecting them every day. And just as a little aside, very briefly, the things a narcissist brings up out of the blue and can't stop talking about, that's the stuff that's going on that's true. there's always, I don't want to say always, but a pattern of the things they bring up that are really off topic, that aren't really relevant within that moment or that situation, that they throw at you. And it doesn't have to be necessarily aggressive, but they just keep talking about it. They won't stop. It goes around and around and around in their heads over and over again. And you start to think, even when you're under their illusion, under their spell, and being suffocated by them, you think, what is going on? This is so strange. Those are the things that really, really bother them. And it's usually stuff that they're actively denying or justifying or saying that they don't do. What that means is whatever case they're putting forth, whatever they're trying to make you believe, the exact opposite is true. If it's something they can't leave alone, the exact opposite of what they're proposing is true. It is not a guilty conscience, but it's definitely something going on, part of that contradiction. Maybe I'll cover it in a later video, but it's relevant here and as a little aside. And that unraveling point where you start to recognize this abuse for what it is, recognize that they can't recognize it, and also because they attribute it to you. Whatever that cycle is, what the part of it that they complain about, which is the surface of it, that is not the thing that is actually causing it. I know I'm getting a little abstract here, but bear with me. That is the thing that is sort of the, linchpin holding everything together, the part that they want you to fix. There's some reason, some excuse for them to keep doing something that is causing this chaotic environment to continue, building it up, allowing it to persist. And it does run in waves. It runs in cycles. And they will do whatever they can to attribute that to you. So therefore, it must be your fault. And if you changed, it would go away. You start to learn that that is simply not the case, that they are behind it. Because it's often pretty obvious. There's a lot of words and reasoning that appears to hold up. When you actually observe the behavior, you realize they're going to keep doing it forever. And the only thing that actually is capable of changing, capable of changing this course, is you. Everything else is just going to remain the same. And even when you are, I guess I'll say, separated from them, even when you're distant from them and things have changed somewhat, you find that they're still doing the same thing, and they find other people to enable them to doing it. That same chaotic environment. And that's why I just want to very strongly note this aspect of their denial. The aspect that basically they can justify anything, whatever they want to do. There are bounds. There are bounds. But those bounds are much less noticeable in the household environment, in the home, in where they're controlling their family, where they're controlling their spouse, their children, and so on. They will always find an excuse. They will always find a reason. It is built into them. It is a natural and necessary adaptation. It's a necessary ingredient for their narcissism to exist and for them to continue with that illusion. It has to be there. And so that's why you always see it without exception. No matter what contrary evidence is presented, they always have ways of overlooking it. And especially, I want to note especially that home environment, because the home environment is not a court of law. It is not, in courts of law aren't perfect, but when they get you alone, when they get you in a very high pressure and uncertain environment, they've been manipulating sort of your primal emotions, your survival instinct, and you have this fear running through your body and anxiety and all kinds of things. They're working on you. They know how to mold things in such a way and condition you so that you believe anything. They believe it. They're broken. They believe it. They have to believe it. They put you in a similar environment. You're going to believe it too. And that's their chief primary skill. That's their contribution to humankind. That understanding they'll always going to do it, and they always have an excuse and a reason for it, is something that then can get you into the mindset of what you can do. What is your responsibility, and how things, if things are going to change, how they need to be done, because they need to be done by you, because the narcissist is not going to change. And they're trying to understand. That's that tipping point when you realize the greatest part of the illusion is that they're working on something, they're changing, when they're really not. It's all static, it's all stagnant, it's not going anywhere. If anything, they're getting worse. But there has to have that appearance of change and improvement, that they're working on it, that things are moving along. And that's that moment when you start to see through it. It's very shocking, but it's also the dawn of a new and hopefully healthier era. So I hope you like this video. Like it if you do. Share it with somebody you think might benefit from it. Comment in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.